All right. Welcome. Ford Future Live today, Friday, October 10th. Yes, I do remember the day. October 10th, 2025. With me again, Nick Wentz, partner at Ford Future. What's up, Nick?
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. We have a
Good having my heart drop for a second thinking your mic isn't
that was just a
working.
joke.
All right. On today's show, we have three very special guests. We have Wade Foster, co-founder and CEO of Zapier, here to discuss everything workflow automation, AI agents. Of course, we're going to also ask him about Agent Kit from OpenAI and what that means for the market. And then we have Garrett Langley, founder and CEO of Flock Safety, and we're going to be chatting to him about public safety, the future, AI's impact on communities, surveillance, and that's going to be super interesting. Then we have Adrian Lugwood, Chief Architect and CISO of Tools for Humanity. We're going to discuss the importance of proof of humanity. So remember WorldCoin, the orb, we're going to ask them all about that. So it's going to be super exciting. And but first, we're going to get into some news. You may have noticed, though, I'm in a different location. I moved. I'm now in the Bay Area. So if you want to hang out, let me know. Yeah, it's good to be here.
How's that office coming together, Matt?
Well, originally when I had nothing back there, which was yesterday, it looked like I was in a hostage video. Now, because I have some boxes you can't see all over, it's kind of an industrial look. It's cool, a little echoey. I got to fix that, but it's getting there.
It somehow already looks better than my office, so I have some catch up to do. I think we'll get there.
Yeah. But let's get into the news.
All right, let's get into the news. Thank you, Alex. All right, so Figure has introduced Figure 03, their third generation humanoid robot. Let's actually play this video.
Yeah,
You can turn off.
you can pause the music for a sec, and it's pretty insane. It's pretty beautiful. I think compared to what else I'm seeing out there, including Optimus, it is the most gorgeous piece of humanoid robot hardware I've ever seen. And the promo video that they did for it, it's just everything about it is super impressive, assuming it all works.
Sure. Yeah, definitely getting some Apple vibes. The design is very nice. I got some vibes from Signs, seeing that robot walk behind that transparent glass, you know, when they first see the alien.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty amazing.
Okay, we have a slight audio issue. We are we're working on that right now. We're aware. Thanks for letting us know, everybody. Hey, Alex. All right. So yeah, it looks really cool. I know we've been talking about humanoid robots for a while. I am very excited to have one do my dishes. That is the ultimate use case for me. But I think there's a few things that we should point out that I noticed from this video. One, it has a camera in the hands. So it's like right in the palm of the robot, there's a camera. Then all of the fingers look to be touch sensitive. There's inductive charging in the feet, the actual feet. So it will walk over to a charging port and just stand on it and charge. And I think that looks so very cool.
Just like a Roomba.
Just like the Roomba. That's right.
Yeah, it is incredible. You know, I heard a rumor. I don't know if this is true, but some people are saying that the robot in this video is remote controlled.
Yeah,
I don't
teleoperated.
I don't want to believe it. We're gonna have a Figure on and get the truth.
Okay. We may need to restart the stream to get the audio issues sorted out. Can folks in chat just confirm we're still having audio issues right now? And then we may need to restart the stream. And okay, in the meantime, it does look incredible. Just its dexterity, its ability to pick up pick up small objects, maneuver like a pillow. I think they have after this a t-shirt. Yeah, there's still lag. Okay, just for me. All right, let me try to restart mine. Let me see if this helps. I'll be right back.
Good. Let's actually go over to their blog post and we can break down some of the updates here. So the Helix Figure 03 features a completely redesigned sensory suit. That's what Matt was talking about, the sensors in the hand, which is purpose-built to enable Helix Figure's proprietary vision language action AI. And then the home, so Figure 03 has several new features, including soft hands, wireless charging. Yeah, we saw how it could not only grab a pillow, but it could grab hard objects as well, like mugs and cups. Being able to differentiate between the two and change the strength of your grip is pretty impressive. Wireless charging, improved audio system for voice reasoning, and battery safety advancements that make it
Yeah.
easier. You're
And keep
back.
in mind, they built their own AI model, Helix, I believe that's what that's called, right? They built
Yeah,
their
yeah, up
own.
here.
They stopped
Exactly.
using OpenAI, which they originally did. How's the audio, by the way, now, Alex? Let me know. Please continue.
Yeah, and then I think the third point here is the mass manufacturing. It seems like they are really prepared to start delivering. So Figure 03 was engineered from the ground up for high volume manufacturing. In order to scale, they established a new supply chain, an entirely new process for manufacturing humanoid robots.
Yep.
So
And by the way, Elon Musk has said this all along. Creating a prototype is the easy part. Scaling it to production is the like infinitely harder part.
right, right.
All right, looks like audio's good now. Thanks everybody. Thanks for letting
Back
me
in
know.
business. Nice. So
It was me this week, Nick.
yeah, exactly. um, you know, I'm sold. Obviously, I'd love to see a price tag. I couldn't find that
And also
immediately.
when? When are we getting this?
Yeah, what's the release date exactly? I think it's going to be entirely creepy for the first couple days having a humanoid walk around in your house. But then I'm going to completely forget about it as soon as
Yeah,
it starts
absolutely.
doing chores and taking out the trash, giving me a foot rub. I don't know. Like I'm going to forget about it. It's like Waymo. You step into a self-driving car, it's weird for the first couple of seconds and then you forget about it. So, pretty exciting.
Yeah, did you by the way see that Walmart is now selling the Chinese robot?
No, I did
Yeah,
not.
straight up, you could buy it from Walmart, have it delivered to you. Um, of course, I'm forgetting the name, but yeah, they started selling robots, and now it's over. It's all over.
Yeah, this is going to start happening very fast. All right, let's go on to the next story here. AMD and OpenAI
Yeah.
announced strategic partnership to deploy 6 gigawatts of AMD GPUs.
Yeah, so much to cover here. First of all, I interviewed Greg Brockman this week at Dev Day. If you haven't checked that out, please do. Um, he said multiple times in the interview, we need more compute, and this is just a testament to that. The second a GPU is produced, it is claimed, actually probably well before that, every single token that can be used will be used, and there is 10x demand, maybe even more than that right now. So supply cannot even come close to keeping up with demand. I also asked Greg Brockman if it's similar or there's a lot of work to be done to build on top of an AMD chipset since there's no CUDA there versus building on top of NVIDIA. And he said, well, a little, but not really. So it's this is a great win for AMD. AMD popped 40% earlier this week, the stock.
Right.
So yeah.
Back in the game. Yeah, I found it interesting during that chat with Greg. He was talking about there's someone on his team who is, I don't know if they're responsible, but at least they're monitoring the allocation of compute across teams and products.
Yeah.
And whenever there's anything left over, it's immediately soaked up by researchers.
Yeah,
So
and he said that's it's a constant battle internally to see who gets compute. I forget the exact wording he used, but he's basically said it was like a war.
yeah,
So it's like
compute wars.
I
Yep.
get it. Everybody wants the compute. The compute is the currency of the future, and certainly within the context of a workplace like OpenAI, where everything is compute.
Right.
Everything is computer. Everything is compute.
Everything computer. Very good. All right. Let's go to another story. And then I think we'll bring on our guest after that. So Agent Kit. You know, we had the opportunity to see Sam announce this live at Dev Day earlier this week. It's crazy that that was just Monday.
Nick, can you zoom out just a little bit?
Yep, moving out here. Can everyone see that? All right. So yeah, Matt, walk us through this. Are you excited for this? Have you played with it yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to talk about here, and it's extremely relevant to our next guest, Wade, coming on. Right, so like Agent Kit is kind of a very basic workflow for agents that you can put together, very visual workflow from OpenAI. Of course, like OpenAI is building in the direction that they're telling their clients to build. And it's just like, it's very reminiscent of my previous company. We were built on top of Twilio, and then Twilio started competing with us, but not really. And I don't know. There's just a lot to talk about here. It is a very basic product right now from what I've been hearing and what I've been seeing. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens with it.
Yeah. Let's break this down a little bit because there are a few components of the platform. So, you know, they're saying that you have everything you need to build, embed, govern, and even measure your agents. So you have the agent builder. This is a visual canvas for creating multi-agent workflows. Then you have the connector registry. This is going to be especially interesting to talk to Wade about. And then Chat Kit. And so this is embedding chat-based agent experiences in your own product. I've played around with it a little bit. I think the thing that struck me the most is just how intuitive it is. It just makes sense. You get in there and you can immediately start actioning different workflows.
And
so
Zapier is a partner, if I remember correctly.
They are.
Yeah. So
Indeed.
let's bring on Wade and let's talk to him about Zapier and everything else. So please welcome our first guest, Wade Foster, CEO and co-founder of Zapier. Zapier, a company at the forefront of workflow automation. Welcome to the show, Wade.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Hey Wade.
Thanks for joining us. So by the way, Wade, I have been using Zapier not only at this company, but at my previous company for probably about a decade plus. So big fan of Zapier. Used it extensively. It literally allowed us to close 6-figure deals at my previous company. So yeah, genuinely a big fan of what y'all built there. But for those,
sorry, Matt, sorry to interrupt. I got to jump in on this too. Also a huge fan, been using it for years, and it powers, I think, almost all of our back-end processes at this point at Forward Future. So yeah. Thank you. Yeah. On to the interview.
Thank you guys. I didn't pay for that, just so it's clear.
yeah.
For those who don't know, Wade, what is Zapier?
Yeah, Zapier is a AI orchestration platform. You know, we started as simple integrations, connect this to that, expanded into workflow. And then, of course, in the AI era, workflows just got way more powerful when you can put an AI or an agent inside of a workflow to really help it orchestrate, you know, all these backend processes that you might do. And that spans function, it spans industry. It is really a pretty powerful way to get more work done inside your company.
Zapier has been doing workflow automation for a long time, but then obviously with the new generative AI wave, a lot has probably changed internally. Talk about that transition and what you're seeing your customers use it for pre kind of that ChatGPT moment and then post that moment.
Yeah. So pre ChatGPT, you know, workflows were very structured and deterministic. So you would say, hey, I got a lead that came through on my website, and I want to land that into my CRM. And so you might set up a simple workflow like that. Or maybe you'd go hit like an enrichment API like Clearbit. And so you get like job title or company that they work at, and, you know, kind of add some more structured data to the workflow. And, you know, it enabled you to build automations in sort of any place where you had well-structured data. Then, you know, ChatGPT launches, the advent of these APIs that allow you to hook into LLMs. And now all of a sudden you can build workflows with unstructured data. So for example, we take that same use case before, you got a lead that comes in through your website. Now you might go do an internet search on it, and you're going to go fetch a whole bunch of data, unstructured data. And then you're going to plop that into your CRM, probably just in an unstructured way. You just say, hey, I'm going to pin this as a note. And now you have all this extra interesting data that you can go use to sell to your customers. So, when you got a sales rep that's going to be talking to a prospect from that company for the first time, they're pulling that information out. You're creating a sales brief for them automatically. So they walk in and they know everything that they need to know. Same thing when it goes to the CS person after post sales, they have all that context from the sales rep. And so this issue where, companies struggle with handoffs and what data goes from one team to the next, you can do a much better job in the age of AI at sort of orchestrating. And that's just an example within sort of like a lead gen, RevOps, marketing style use case.
And Wade, there's been a lot of talk in the last few weeks and months, especially with that MIT paper, that a lot of enterprise companies are struggling to implement this. And we can dive into why that is, but you've had years and years and years of implementing automation. And so are you seeing companies struggle, and the ones that are succeeding, what is it about them? What is their secret sauce?
Yeah, that report didn't surprise me too much. I think the folks are really excited about the potential of this, but it does still take a fair amount of work to get these things working well in production. I think a lot of folks are excited about agents, but purely agentic use cases have a lot of reliability issues. They have a lot of cost issues. And what we found is that mostly what is actually working is folks starting with a basic workflow and then adding in AI steps here and there. And, we have a full agentic product. We have Zapier agents. So we're seeing that we kind of have this like accidental A/B test in real life where we can see what is actually working. Look, agents work in some cases, but the vast majority of stuff that actually works is when you wrap an agent inside of a deterministic workflow that allows you to get higher reliability out of the end system.
And are you working hands-on? I know like the kind of hot role is forward deployed engineer and things like that. Do you have that role at Zapier? And do you have to go in and help, obviously when it makes economic sense to help a large company, but do you go in there and actually help them hands-on?
We don't have that title, but we do similar types of work where we'll come in and we'll help teams run boot camps and hackathons, and we'll help them with the ideas. This is one of the biggest hurdles I think a lot of functions have right now, is they actually don't know what they should start with. They're getting, if you ask your average CMO, they're like, I guess I should write better press releases, or I could, maybe do some AI SDR stuff. But beyond that, there's not a lot of like great material out there to be like, this is the stuff that you can actually do with this. There's kind of, it's still happening in the edges of these organizations. And so a big part of what we do is we take the 1% of our user base and say, hey, we're going to go take their learnings and try and deploy it to everybody else.
So Wade, you probably heard us talking about Agent Kit at the top of the show. Curious to hear more about that relationship with OpenAI and how that was established, and then also how you view that evolving long term. The way I understand it is Agent Builder actually uses Zapier's MCP connector. So maybe walk us through the technical aspects of it too.
Yeah, so Zapier MCP is available as one of the MCP connectors you can use within Agent Kit. And I think this is really important because if you don't use Zapier MCP or any of the other ones, but Zapier MCP hooks into 8,000 different tools. So it's by far the most expansive library you can hook into. Agent Kit, it really only enables you to improve chat responses at the end of the day. You can give it some basic structure to allow it to guide the LLM to, just give you a better answer at the end of the day. When you plop in something like Zapier MCP, you can now call out to any of the data that exists inside the rest of your stack. And so you can use that to, again, augment the response, work with the data in particular ways, but you could also call out and have it do actions as well too. So you can say, hey, now that you've come up with this better response, I want you to go do something. Maybe I want you to write a draft inside of email, or I want you to create a Jira ticket, or I want you to, log something inside of a CRM or post a message to Slack. You can do all these other actions, which you just don't get out of Agent Kit, at least today, out of the box.
And maybe let's dive a little bit deeper into platform risk, because obviously like we spoke to the Replit CEO about building on top of OpenAI models when OpenAI is Codex. And I'm sure you're getting this question and you think about it a lot internally. Like, how do you think about as you're using OpenAI models and they're building Agent Kit and it's like somewhat competitive with Zapier? Like, how do you think about that whole dynamic?
Yeah, this is something we're pretty familiar with. If you are in SaaS, you probably have seen workflow builders inside of every SaaS product. Salesforce has workflow capabilities, Shopify has workflow capabilities, HubSpot has workflow capabilities. So we're no stranger to companies in our ecosystem building, native workflow capabilities. I think what often happens is those do a good job at helping you build automation kind of within that walled garden. And where the power of a tool like Zapier comes in is we say, hey, we're agnostic of your stack. We just want to help you make your work
Yeah.
work. And so that independence, I think, is really, really valuable. Won't surprise me if, Agent Kit does an amazing job of helping people build some incredible capabilities within OpenAI's toolkit. And it will probably branch into some specific first part or some other areas, but it likely will never touch the breadth of what Zapier has to offer.
How important is being model agnostic to Zapier strategy?
Well, I think it's like a big part of our brand reputation is that when you show up to Zapier, you're going to be able to hook into any part of your stack, and you're not going to have to worry about, oh, well, if only it hooked into this one other thing, and now the whole like idea you had in your head just sort of falls apart because the last mile is not available to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to say, maybe a decade ago, I'd run into some dead ends when I was trying to create automations with the current stack that our company was using, whatever it might be. Now, I rarely run into that, if ever. And so, is the plan to continue expanding that, or do you feel like you've reached kind of critical mass at this point and have good coverage?
I think it's going to get even more expansive. And I
Yeah.
think a big part of this is because you're going to see, if we thought we were seeing SaaS sprawl, I think you're going to see agent sprawl that just
Mm.
makes SaaS sprawl look tiny. And so you're going to need a way to hook these agents up to each other. And these agents are going to exist in all sorts of different platforms. You're going to have agents that live in Salesforce, live in HubSpot, live in Shopify, live in Jira, etc. And those things are going to need to call out and talk to each other in all sorts of particular ways. But it's not just going to be one Salesforce agent. You're going to have many inside of that ecosystem, and they're going to have to hook together. Plus, you've got all these people building internal tools that will have APIs. You're going to have more SaaS that's coming out because there's just so much more code that's being written. And so, it feels like the 2010s was just like a warm-up act. Like we knew that there was huge demand for software, but the supply was just far too limited. And now with these cogen models, I think we've just unlocked a huge amount of supply.
And so, like, okay, as you think about agents seemingly taking over the browsing experience for humans and really like subsuming the application layer, right? Satya said the application layer is collapsing down into agents. How does that factor into Zapier's strategy?
Yeah, I think, our job is to do for agents what we did for SaaS and applications like these. We're going to see just an enormous number of agents inside these companies. And partly what makes these agents work is when you give them very concrete goals and tasks to go achieve. And the more goals you give them, the more they get confused. And so it's better to have an agent be hyper fixated on one thing, which means you're going to have lots of agents, each of them specialized in their particular area. And the way you get reliability out of these systems is to have these agents figure out how to talk to each other, input in one side, output out the other, and then connect them along. And so I think Zapier's role is to sort of help that orchestration happen across all these agents.
Have you seen agents, or have you seen a use case where agents need to actually pay each other?
Not yet. I think everyone talks about this concept of like, oh, our agents are going to go shopping for us. I do think that's coming. Um, I haven't seen it play out in practice yet. And I think some of this is just like humans are a little scared to turn it loose with a budget. And I think some of it is the tech is still needs a lot of work.
There's like two sides to it. It's like if an agent may need to pay another agent for some transaction that isn't necessarily a good or a service, or maybe it is probably more a service, but maybe not a good. And then there's the agent commerce protocol from Stripe, and this open protocol that allows agents to actually go pay merchants on your behalf.
Mhm.
Have you integrated ACP, Agent Commerce Protocol, yet? And how does that factor into what you're doing?
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. So we'll have to stay tuned for more.
Okay. And then do you think there are new pricing models on the internet that are really catalyzed by artificial intelligence, especially as humans maybe browse the internet less often because agents are doing it on our behalf?
Well, certainly what we're seeing is a huge ramp up in usage-based pricing. Yeah, I think this is definitely been catalyzed by AI. I also think it's a reaction that against seat-based pricing that we saw
Mm,
when the zero interest rate environment sort of collapsed, and CFOs were like, this is ridiculous, why am I paying for so many seats? And so you, on one hand, you have this like market force pulling against seats, and then you have the emergence of AI, which is pushing folks towards usage-based pricing. And so that feels really really valuable. You also hear a lot about value-based pricing. I think I'm not as sure about this, to be honest. I think it makes sense sort of like in an abstract world where you have no competition, where you can say, hey, I'm going to come in and I'm going to charge you perfectly for the value here. But the moment you have a couple players in a space, one's just going to come in and say, well, I'll just charge you for usage, or I'll charge you some other different way. And I think it kind of falls apart. So, we'll see how that shakes out. Maybe,
but
maybe.
if somebody comes along and say, we're going to charge you usage-based pricing, and then let's say Zapier has outcome-based pricing, value-based pricing, isn't outcome-based pricing better for the end user? It
Well,
puts the onus on the actual service provider.
I think it depends on how that plays out. If you've got Jeff Bezos on the other side saying your margin is my opportunity, and he's coming in and going like, well, that outcome-based pricing, you're taking too big of a margin. I can come in here and do it differently. You're in trouble. But there are other ways I think to think about this. If we look at the past, uh, one such example would be how Google's ad ecosystem has evolved. You used to have to pay per impressions. That's how advertising worked for forever.
Mm,
And you never really had a good sense of what an impression was. But they moved the unit of value down to the click. And click was like closer to the conversion rate. And then now they have models that allow you to pay for conversions. And so
right.
they're getting closer and closer to a better outcome at the end of the day, which in at least Google's case is hard for other advertising platforms to mimic. You of course can see it with the big players, Meta, LinkedIn, etc. But other advertisers, they don't have the mechanism to charge you in that way, and so it
Right.
works really well for
You have
them.
to own the whole pipeline is kind of what you're saying. You not only have to own the ad inventory, but you also have to have your pixel on the conversion page so you actually know, and all of that just takes a lot of time and a lot of distribution.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a
and
good
I think
example.
you see this with companies that are trying to do value-based pricing right now, where they're coming in and it prolongs the sale, it slows things down. You have to you're in this negotiation process with the buyer, trying to figure out exactly where it lands, and it can work. Like I've seen some of these companies do have very big contracts when done well, but they also have very few customers, and so it's just a different strategy, I think, at the end of the day.
Interesting. So, changing gears a little bit here, Wade. When I've used Zapier in the past, I think a lot of my workflows have been around data transfer, like getting the right information to the right tool. And now we're moving to a new world where it's more about the automation, the agentic workflows doing a lot of the work. We've touched on this a little bit already, but I'm curious, like, what are you seeing internally uh, in the way that companies are taking advantage of this shift? Like, what are the most impactful workflows that you're seeing come out of Zapier these days?
Yeah, yeah, I think you see a lot of automation happening around lead management. So, we described that use case earlier before.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work around content management. So, this is, content systems that are sort of helping you with your publishing pipeline. One
That's what we
example of
use
this,
it for.
Yeah,
yeah.
a lot of that.
One example of this is, you hear a lot of folks doing like case studies inside of a company where they'll talk to a customer and then they'll take the transcript, they'll feed it into a prompt. The prompt will spit out like a first draft of this. They'll have a review agent then sort of edit it, and then finally it spits it into the CMS for publishing. And usually, folks still keep a human in the loop on that to sort of avoid just pure AI slop. But case studies are so structured that it's a really good way to do content publishing. So that's pretty common. You do see a lot of work with just like communication and collaboration. So there's a lot of like, organizations, a lot of handoffs from team to team and from system to system. And so, you have like when this, task gets closed over here, we need to feed the output of that task to this team to alert them, to let them know. And I think as you start to see these handoffs go down, um, you're moving from this world where you're passing data from one team to another, and you're starting to have agents sit in the middle and start to do bits of work as well too. And that I think is what gets exciting is you kind of start with like smoothing over the handoff, but increasingly the AI takes on more and more of the work.
Let's continue down that path for a second. Balaji, I don't know, like a few weeks ago said agents and AI in general is really good at middle to middle, but it's not good at end to end. And you still on each side of the end, on one side, you still need the prompting. On the other, you need the verification. Is that what you're seeing? And then as you're looking forward kind of in the next few years, do you see humans being taken out of the loop completely? Or do you think there's still a place for kind of end-to-end supervision?
I think middle to middle is a really great way to describe where AI is effective today. I think there's a lot of checkpoints where you want a human still reviewing the output of the work and analyzing. In fact, I think this is probably going to be one of the most important jobs that emerges from this area is humans that are just constantly reviewing outputs of these agents and saying, yep, that looks great, or no, not quite. And I wonder why not. Does this mean I need to go edit the prompt? Does this mean I need to give it better context? Like, what do I need to do this? And I think there's going to be a lot of just QA work around that. And there's going to be a lot of statistical work that sort of has to go into that to, figure out like what your acceptable error rates out of these agents are and things like that. But you will have like a person who is just sitting there, like tuning this machinery, monitoring the outputs based on the outputs coming in and like changing how the agent works.
So we're just real quick, as the middle to middle expands, are you seeing anything internally, any trends of jobs evolving, getting eliminated completely? Like, what are you seeing as that middle to middle kind of expands?
You definitely see places where roles get like squished together, where in the past you would sort of have, a person that specialized in this, a person that specializes this, a person that specializes in this, because the work to do that thing was like pretty, well, it required like a specialized skill. But now the AI is pretty good at that. And so you can say, hey, I'm going to actually take, these two roles and make them one role. And now you're going to be able to oversee this entire process end to end. We're not going to have these handoffs, from individual to individual. We can just take someone who cares about the end to end output and they'll go monitor the whole system.
And in the way you're describing it, it sounds like the skill set for the verifier is more so of somebody who knows the agents and the artificial intelligence really well versus somebody who knows that part of the market really well. Let's say you're building widgets. They know widgets incredibly well. Which skill set is it? Is it a combination of both? Which one's more important?
It's definitely both right now. Like, you see, I think most commonly you see like someone who is great at the craft combined with somebody who's like an LLM hacker. And like those two people sort of sit in a pocket and work on these things together. That's pretty common. I think part of the challenge for like the LLM hacker is you still benefit quite a bit from understanding what is the business process trying to be solved here? What is the goal we're trying to achieve? And that knowledge does allow you to get like much better outputs. And then of course the opposite side is probably more familiar to folks where you have someone who knows the craft but hasn't spent enough time like figuring out these modern tools yet. And that person is sort of stuck in the old world a little bit. But if you can, get an individual who has both of those, oh man, that's gold. Like that's so
it
great
sounds
right
like
now.
that role's few and far between though, or that person,
Right
right?
now.
Because it's like you're a subject matter expert, plus you're on the cutting edge of using agents. And yeah, so right now it might be it just seems like that's such a tough role. And then also, what does that mean for entry level folks who maybe they can get pretty good at the agent side, but they're not going to be subject matter experts until they get ramped up, until they have those years of experience? What do they do?
Well, I it's a good question. Like I think you end up spending a lot of time reviewing the outputs of these systems alongside the person with craft and like just tuning your taste, tuning your judgment, like figuring out like what makes this thing work, and then hopefully building how to build out these agents. I do think part of why this skill set is so rare at this moment is that we're kind of in the BlackBerry era of like AI agents. Like this stuff is technically possible, but it's still kind of hard. And there's a lot of work to sort of get us to that iPhone moment where most of us can kind of just come in and be like, okay, yep, I can go build these things. These are great. These are easy. It still is the domain of, you know, tinkerers and systems thinkers and folks that like really care about getting
Yeah.
under the hood and like, doing this sort of stuff. That's where folks get huge advantages today.
So if we're looking at kind of what the market looks like for entrepreneurs, and let's say you're starting a new company today, Wade. There's like a lot of people talking about the first company to hit $1 billion with a single person. Do you think that's possible? And if you were starting a new company today, how far do you think you can get before hiring anybody, assuming that's what you would want to do?
Yeah. I definitely think it's possible, and probably likely. I think the place you see it most closely today is in is around like celebrity run businesses. Like Taylor, I don't know what Taylor Swift's like market cap is, but she's getting close to it, and she has a very very small team. I think you look at like the Kardashians; it's somewhat similar, where they got their makeup empire and things like that, but it's a very small team that's doing these things. Um, I think for sort of like traditional SaaS or like software or these types of things, it is a little harder because inevitably it's harder to trade on brand when you're that small, where celebrity gets to trade on their brand in ways that give them like huge advantages over others. But in software, if you're making $1 billion and you've got 10 employees, someone else is going to look at that and go like, well, what would happen if I had 20 employees or 50 employees or 100 employees? Again, that Jeff Bezos, like your margin is my opportunity, sort of sinks in, and they figure out, well, I'm going to compete for the next billion or the 2 billion after that. And so I think, in these highly competitive arenas, you end up deploying that margin to go get more market share, get more customers, grow faster, et cetera. Because if you don't, somebody else is going to do it.
Yeah, that reminds me of our conversation with Aaron Levy. We were talking to him at BoxWorks, and he was saying that if a team is excelling with their use of AI, they're actually going to resource that team with more humans, because at the end of the day,
100%.
would you rather have an AI exclusive team, or would you rather have a team that leverages AI really well and augments their
100%.
abilities?
100%. And I think this is what gets lost in the discussion around in the employee base around like, I'm fearful of automating my job. Any smart company, when they see somebody using AI to automate key processes and works, they're paying that person more, they're promoting that person, they're giving them more resources because it's just so valuable to the company at the end of the day. And so it is a huge moment of leverage and opportunity for folks who see this and embrace this and figure out how to build their skill sets around it.
Yeah. So wait, I know we just have a couple minutes left here, but you seem to be so in the weeds of delivering value and impact. It's like setting up these workflows that are actually like changing how teams work. It's very practical. We just left Dev Day earlier this week, and OpenAI talks about AGI a lot. Does AGI mean anything to you, or does it feel like noise? Are you ignoring it completely?
My co-founder Mike runs ArcPrize, and if you're unfamiliar with Arc, they benchmark
We're very
all the
familiar.
frontier
Yeah.
models. Yeah.
Yep.
So I spent a lot of time talking to Mike about this, and ultimately I think what I have learned from him is that for us to get to AGI, we need fundamentally new techniques. Transformers, reasoning, it's not going to get us there. Every new model sort of falls along this Pareto curve of efficiency where you can pay more money and get a higher output, or you pay less money and get none, but none of us been able to sort of bust through that Pareto curve. And, I'm pretty confident that, Mike and the work he's done has sort of helped galvanize more people to new research, new techniques at going about it. But, I don't think we're going to just see this like infinite scaling law continue down its path. That said, if innovation stopped today, there is still a huge amount of economically useful work that can happen just by deploying more infrastructure, easier to use tooling to deploy the existing models. And so I don't think we're at AGI right now, but a few inventions to go, I think it'll happen for us.
Wade, what's your definition of AGI?
I mean, I like Mike's, which is, hey, AI has the ability to learn new tasks on its own.
Yeah.
I think that's really important versus just sort of mimicking something that's in its training set.
Yeah, we're pretty close with Greg Cameron, president of ArcPrize, so friend of
Mhm.
the show. That's really cool. One last question for you before we let you go. As you're seeing the kind of the relationship between humans and the traditional internet change, and especially because Zapier has agents and you could do a lot without actually going to the internet. How are you seeing it change? How do you see the future of the human internet, kind of traditional website, traditional app relationship changing over the next few years?
Well, I think we're starting to see what that's going to look like with on Dev Day. ChatGPT launched ChatGPT apps, and I think I'm pretty excited about this world where more and more of our time is spent away from the screen. And, maybe we're just talking to an agent or talking to an audio agent that goes and deploys tasks for us and make things happen. That was one of the things we got really excited about when we started Zapier in 2011 was that you could build software that would do work for you. And so you didn't have to sit down at the screen and manually move through these tasks, copy and paste these things. This idea of invisible software, invisible work happening for you, it makes me more excited because humans can now go spend their time with each other and out in the real world and doing things like that versus stuck behind a screen all day every day. And I got a 3 and a 5-year-old, and for me that's a more exciting future, I think, than the one we've sort of been in here in the last decade or so.
All right, Wade, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, go check out Zapier, zapier.com. Wade, where can people find you if they want to follow you directly?
Yeah, I'm Wade Foster on all the social stuff, so I'm pretty easy to find.
All right, Wade, thanks again. Come back to the show anytime.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Wade.
Yep. All right.
What a treat. Big
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like we're biased, and I guess we are.
Little bit.
Both of us independently use Zapier for many years, and then of course now together at Forward Future we use it all the time. Let's do some news, Nick.
So that was actually a really good segue. Apps and ChatGPT. Let's talk
Yeah.
about it. I mean, this feels like the future portal of the internet in some ways. If the app experience that you are used to, let's say in Spotify or Zillow, is suddenly in the ChatGPT interface, why are you going to Zillow or Spotify?
Directly. Yeah, exactly. That's the first thing I thought. It's like, wow, this is a great experience because not only can you kind of have the traditional app experience from within ChatGPT, but then you can also go a little bit further and actually ask the app questions and have it do things for you. And it just feels to me like let's continue to use Zapier or sorry, Zillow as the example. That kind of interface seems like it's going to melt away over time, and it's just going to be reinvented within the context of an agent, of maybe ChatGPT directly. But I think from a business perspective, Sam Altman and team really planted the flag and said, no, we're the homepage. We are the first place you're going to go when you're accessing everything else. And they were kind of very nuanced about the way that they described their ability to recommend apps after you've come to ChatGPT. And of course, that you can do that when you have 800 million users.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, what you said at the beginning of that, very interesting and important. It's not just the app you're getting. You're getting the capabilities of ChatGPT in the app. And that is so powerful. That's a new way to engage and use these apps, that natural language.
Yeah. And so it does feel like, look, I appreciate that Zillow and a lot of the companies we're seeing here are kind of like, hey, let's first test this new technology. But it almost seems like they're letting the Trojan horse in the gate. Right. It just seems like maybe even more of a significant moment than the App Store was, where it's like, oh, no, we're beholden to Apple now and we owe them 30% of every transaction and we have to abide by their terms. It seems like it might be even more severe than that because ChatGPT's branding is now everywhere. It's not just, well, you can load up your app on our hardware and it's completely your branding. No, it's like, no, now we're going to have our hooks into every single corner of your app. And we're going to be able to have ChatGPT help the consumer use your app. And we're going to control that experience completely. It's just like, it's more of this, severe platform risk.
Yeah. And look, these companies, Zillow, Spotify, as examples, hold very high brand affinity with folks like us because we're used to using them. But the next generation who is using ChatGPT first, like, it's gone. There's no brand recognition anymore. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, and so like, let's stay on here for just another minute. Like, what is Zillow providing, right? Like, they're providing an incredible kind of user interaction, user experience. They're built on top of data that is not necessarily theirs, right? This is the MLS. Like, they have a ton of their own data, but ultimately the listing of a piece of property comes from the MLS, and they're scraping that and making it a beautiful experience. And so it's like, is OpenAI just going to disintermediate them? Because then if OpenAI if I can just have an agent build me a view to see the MLS, why do I need Zillow?
Yeah. I mean, my defense of Zillow came down to the data, but you're absolutely right.
How about monetization?
That data comes from somewhere else too.
Like, then you think about Zillow's monetization, right there. I think they do some advertising, but a lot of it is providing leads. And then all of a sudden that kind of monetization path flows through ChatGPT. I don't know. It seems like a very scary place to be.
It's a little nerve-wracking, but we shall see.
Yeah.
Let's do one more story just because this is fun. Our guest is here. But I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this. So look, they've just released another massive hit in Sora. Hits 1 million downloads faster than ChatGPT. Obviously, our team has had a lot of fun with Sora and will continue to do so, but incredible growth.
Yeah. And if you're not already using my Cameo or following me, please do, at Matthew Berman. It's completely public. Go have fun with it. And we're actively trying to convince Nick to put his on there. So it's going to happen, and then go make crazy videos of him too. But yeah, Sora's a hit, man. It is fun. Every time I create a video, I have fun doing it. I laugh. It was like surprisingly comfortable seeing other people use my likeness for crazy videos. I thought I'd be a little bit more nervous, but I don't know. It's just a lot of fun. And then if you can share, Jake Paul had a tweet. Jake Paul, famous YouTuber, boxer now. He had 1 billion views on his cameos within the 7 days since Sora's launch. That is massive distribution.
Yeah, absolutely huge.
Are you pulling that up?
Let's see if I can get it.
I'll buy some time for a moment. Mark Cuban, also big on Sora, and he did something super smart where in Sora you can actually specify preferences for how other people's use your Cameo. And what he did was, in every single version or every single iteration of somebody using my Cameo, say, brought to you by Cost Plus Drugs. And so anytime somebody uses Mark Cuban's likeness, it also promotes Cost Plus Drugs, which I found very interesting. So yeah, here it is. So Jake Paul,
6 days. Yeah. Cameo has generated 1
billion views in 6 days. And crazy, Jake Paul, apparently a prolific startup investor. He has a piece of OpenAI. Kind of nuts to think about that. $57 million in earned media.
Wonder how that's calculated.
Also, like, how is he doing that? How is he generating that? I guess that's maybe just I don't know. Maybe he calculates it based on his CPMs that he's seeing. I don't know.
Sure. Anyway, that's quite the reach. By the way, before we move on, there are 2 updates coming to Sora. The first will give rights holders more granular control over generation of characters. Yeah, I can share this real quick.
This is
There,
Sam Altman's blog post.
yeah, exactly. And there obviously have been some copyright issues or concerns with
What?
this. Yeah, a little bit. And then the second is around monetization. So it says here we are going to have to somehow make money for video generation. People are generating much more than we expected per user, and a lot of videos are being generated for very small audiences. So it sounds like they're
Does he
going to
not say
experiment.
that on like every single release? He's like, "Oh, people are using it so much more than we
Can't believe,
thought." Like,
can't
all
believe how
right,
popular this is.
go ahead and assume it's going to be more next time.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Let's bring on Garrett.
All right. We have our next guest, Garrett Langley, founder and CEO of Flock Safety, a company at the forefront of AI-powered security. And Garrett, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you both.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
Garrett. So to kick things off, for those who might not be familiar, why don't you just give us the quick overview of Flock Safety, maybe even why you started the company, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. We're about 8 years old now. Really simple mission. We exist to help communities thrive. So if you think about like what it takes to thrive as a person, you want to build a business, you want to build a family. To do that, you have to have a bedrock of safety. Those things don't happen if you feel unsafe. And so that's where we come in. We are that bedrock in a community to provide safety. And so we do that through a combination of hardware. So we manufacture and design hardware that ranges from stationary cameras to cameras that fly, i.e. drones, to trailers, to audio devices. And then we have a bunch of software, which I can talk about. And then as you alluded to, a growing kind of investment in the AI space. Now, we were doing this when it was called machine learning. I'm happy to change it to now AI. But we process billions of images. We have a larger data network than something like Instagram that we help serve local law enforcement. So I think this calendar year, we will aid in the arrest of just about 1 million criminals across the U.S. So close to about 20% of all arrests, and that ranges from pedestrian activities like stealing a car to some of the most heinous crimes one can imagine. Would be something like human trafficking. Like there was a case in Boulder, Colorado, a couple weeks ago where 16-year-old girl was snatched at a mall, allegedly for some type of human trafficking, and before even an Amber Alert gets issued, with Flock's help and really hard work from Boulder PD, that girl was safely found. So it's that kind of things that we live in the underbelly of society every single day, so that everyone else can hopefully live a thriving life, whatever venues they may take. So it's a lot of fun.
Garrett, why did you start this company?
Yeah.
It seems like maybe like there was something that had happened, and because this is not a kind of a B2B SaaS. This is like a very specific type of company started by a very specific type of person.
Yeah, I was fortunate earlier in life to have 2 successful exits. One to Qualcomm and one to Cox Enterprises here in Atlanta, where I'm based. And my closest mentor in life was my uncle. Made a really keen observation, which is he was pretty much like, "Hey, you've built 2 dopey companies," and I would argue most B2B SaaS companies are dopey. If you're helping sellers sell more, it's dopey. It's actually not going to change the world. And if you look at the origination of Silicon Valley, it was truly technology that was going to change the world. And his challenge to me was like, if you're going to go do another company, which I wanted to do, it's like, don't let it be dopey. And so we looked at a handful of concepts, and one of them was like, the stat that we always go back to is if you kill someone in America, you've got around a 50 to 60% chance of getting away with it. And that just seems like fundamentally wrong. Like it seems like that should not be the case. And so that was the kind of the root. Well, why any kind of the classic Toyota 5 whys, like, well, why is it so easy to kill someone? Why is this happening? Why isn't there a higher clearance rate? Why do so many cases go cold? And that led us down this path of like, this actually is a pretty solvable problem with technology. It's not going to be easy, but pretty solvable, actually.
Okay.
So there's a lot we want to get into on this. Very interesting topic here. But let's just back up a little bit. So who are your actual customers? What do those look like today? And then does that customer profile evolve over time to include other types of customers?
Yeah. So we service 3 primary customers today. I'll go from oldest to newest. Our original customer base was neighborhoods. I lived in a classical 80 home cul-de-sac planned development, one way in, one way out. that's where a lot of crime happens, right? That's where I experienced crime. There's something on the order of magnitude of 300,000 of these HOAs across America. It's a growing market, and there was no single dominant provider. So in the classic Peter Thiel statement, go build a monopoly in a low NPS, largely fragmented space. That was our first customer. What we found, though, was that as we added neighborhoods, local police departments, and this isn't like San Francisco PD, this is like Foster City PD, would be like, oh, what's this Flock thing? A lot of our neighborhoods have it. Maybe we should get it too for the city. And so we expanded the business into local government. So that's, like I said, everything from Dallas, Georgia to Dallas, Texas in terms of size. Los Angeles, San Francisco, could go on, Berkeley. So we service about 7,000 local governments. That's out of it's probably about an 80% market share in the US in terms of population coverage. And then our newest kind of customer base is the enterprise. So some of the biggest companies in the world rely on Flock to keep both their people and their products safe. And so if you live in the Bay Area, you've seen this firsthand. When businesses lose too much product, they just leave.
Yeah.
And that's a job problem. That's a problem for their business itself. And so when we think about that thriving community, you actually need businesses to feel safe too. So we support both neighborhoods, the police departments, and the businesses in a community.
Got it. And then real quick on the relationship with your customers. So you gave a couple of examples of how you've intervened in certain crimes. How does that process work? I can assume, but I want to hear it from you.
Yeah, it's actually, I have a really good recent example that I can share out of Castle Rock, Colorado. You've probably never heard of Castle Rock, but it's a suburb of Denver. It's a beautiful place. It's great. It's a perfect example of like what a thriving city looks like. So the local mall has Flock cameras. That's that the business has chosen to acquire Flock to keep their mall safe. There is a 911 call at a Levi's store of an attempted robbery. That 911 call goes into local law enforcement. Now, because that mall has a Flock camera and they're sharing it by choice with local police department, they can immediately click a button. They can see a live view of what's happening in that mall. Now, what they see is that there's a very specific vehicle that matches the description. Now, you can look this up. The vehicle description from the store manager was that it was a white van that looked like a black and blue cow. It was like black and blue spray paint. So, like, pro tip, like if you're going to commit a crime, use a normal looking car. Don't retrofit your vehicle. So Castle Rock gets the 911. They pull up the camera. They see the vehicle. They can now get a license plate. So they immediately enter that license plate into what would be called like a custom hot list. So now every single camera in all of Castle Rock is looking for that license plate. Now Castle Rock also has our drones. And so all that 911 call was coming in, they click a button, a drone launches off the police headquarters rooftop, and within 37 seconds, it's on scene at the mall. So now we can avoid a high-speed pursuit because we've actually got visual eyes on the vehicle about 400 feet up in the air, and we're tracking it. It then pulls into another strip mall. Guy walks in to commit another robbery. Local PD can swarm in and successfully and very precisely apprehend the individual before he can commit another crime, before it becomes into something that could have gotten violent. And so in that case, it's a perfect example where it's drones, it's cameras, it's 911, it's the private community working with the public community to aid in an apprehension.
Now, like having extensive surveillance, having drones, all of these things have existed. What is Flock's secret sauce? What is making Flock very special and wanting to be used by all of these different organizations?
Yeah, it's in the name. So like we didn't call the company like Batman with this perception of like, oh, we were going to build this military grade technology and give it to local police departments. We call the company Flock because our core belief was that when we chose to work together, we could solve this problem. And so I use this Castle Rock example because the city would never have put a camera in this strip mall. It's not a particularly unsafe area. It's not really the city can't afford to put cameras everywhere. And so when we are successful, and thankfully we're successful in a lot of cities, it's because we can engage all three parts of a community and convince them to work together. And so the software we've built is this kind of network layer that sits on top of existing cameras, because it doesn't have to be our camera. We can go to that mall, which in this case we do, we integrate all of their cameras. So not just Flock cameras, but all of the existing cameras. They have hundreds of cameras inside. So we can go into a city and kind of turn it into a single network versus, historically it's these disparate systems that don't actually work together.
Does that require hardware to put it all together, or is that a pure software
Pure
implementation?
software. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's some examples where we need to deploy a hardware. That's more from IT security. Like if we're doing this with a Fortune 100 company, which we do, they actually prefer us to put a kind of a device on-prem for them that they can manage, they can block what it has access to. But for your strip mall example, like it's a cloud-to-cloud integration.
Okay, and your mission is to eliminate crime.
Yeah.
That is a bold mission. Do you really think all crime can be eliminated? And then, of course, the analogy I'm sure you've heard 100 times is Minority Report, right? So it's
Yeah.
like how do we not end up in
Do that.
that outcome while also eliminating all crime?
Can I ask you maybe a challenging question? What do you have a personal point of view on what the negative was of Minority Report?
Yeah, I think like the outcome of the movie, if I remember, it's been a while since I've
Yeah.
seen it, is you can basically fake something happening. I can't remember exactly what
So-
happened.
You're predicting crime,
So-
right?
You're predicting crime. So there's an
Predicting
interesting
crime
point.
before
So
it happens.
I asked that question. Sorry, Matt, to put you on the hot seat.
No,
No, by the way, I
It's
really
good-
enjoyed
it's-
that.
It's,
We need more of it.
it's really good to turn the tables.
Yeah.
So let's actually, if you unpack Minority Report, the best thing was out of however many years it was running, let's call it a decade, there was one false positive in the criminal justice system. We have a false positive every single hour in our current judicial system. So on the one hand, I go like, look, guys, there was a lot that was working. Now to Nick's point, I think the biggest issue is that it was arguably artificial intelligence. You had this non-human thing underwater predicting where crime was going to happen before it even happened. That to me is the dystopian kind of leap that I'm not willing to take, where you go, this is there's no humans involved and it's all predictive. I think both of those are very bad. And so when we talk about AI in law enforcement, we don't use the words artificial intelligence, we use the word amplified intelligence. And it's a very distinctive point for us because we go, look, I think humans should open investigations. I think humans should close investigations. Everything in the middle, though, we should use technology to automate, to find more intelligence, to find more interesting insights. And so I'll give you a sense of scale. I was with the district attorney in San Francisco earlier this week. They're a great customer. We're having a lot of success in San Francisco. She has 7,000 cases in their backlog. They have 170 attorneys full time. It's not like they're not working, guys. There is just way too much work. And I was like,
Yeah.
Brittany, like, what if we could use amplified intelligence to automate some of the work there? Not to show up in court, not to decide what to prosecute. That's still human, but that middle part, the 7,000 cases in backlog, like we should be using technology. And so, like for me, there's like a very clear way to both have our cake and eat it too. We can increase the level of safety without removing what it is that makes us both human and American.
Garrett,
So that-
when I first heard that you're having so much success in San Francisco and the greater Bay Area, I was honestly surprised given kind of the posture of the politics here and like what was that conversation like and how were you ultimately able to convince them of the value of Flock?
Yeah, so it's funny. One of our first customers in the Bay Area was Berkeley.
The last
And
municipality I would have
how's that-
thought, right?
Well, so what's interesting is that credit to city council and the mayor and the police chief, they saw the social experiment that San Francisco was going under and said, we do not want to be the next ones. And like they got on early. That actually opened the door for places like San Francisco and for Oakland to go, well, wait a second. If Berkeley thinks this is okay, maybe actually being hard on crime is an apolitical stance. So, I mean, you saw it with the removal of the prior DA, who was way too soft. The new DA, she's pretty vocal. Like, if you commit a crime in my city, I'm going to hold you accountable. Which, to be clear, guys, like that, I don't think that should be a political point of view. Like, we have these laws in our country, and the reason why we don't have other versions of society, and you can go to parts of Central and South America and see what it looks like when law and order goes away. It's not pretty. Economy tanks, crime skyrockets. So it's a bit of a network effect in that regard, where it just took a couple cities to say, we want to be safe. You know, the Athertons, the Foster Cities, the San Ramones, the Danvilles, you pick a couple of them and they start having a lot of success. And eventually, if you're unwilling to be hard on crime, you lose your position of power. And most elected officials don't like that outcome.
Yeah. So just because you said it and we talk about it a lot, this
Yeah.
middle to middle idea, you can,
Yeah.
we were just talking to Wade Foster, for instance, and the CEO of Zapier, and he talks about how the middle to middle of a workflow is being removed and sent to the agents or the AIs.
Yeah.
In the Castle Rock example, the trigger was a 911.
911. That's right.
Now, are there examples where Flock is actually the trigger? And if so, can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example of one where we're closer to the trigger. I would never presume to say that we are going to be this predictive policing engine. We still want a human to define the agent, but I'll give you one that's a little bit beyond a 911 call. So you're probably not familiar with the type of crime called jugging. Familiar?
No.
Okay. Don't worry. Hopefully it won't happen to you. It's typically when you're related to crime associated with ATMs. So you either wait for an armored car to show up, or you wait for someone to show up to ATM, get a bunch of cash out, and then you jug them and take their money and run. And so we have an agent that a city can deploy that tracks armored vehicles and runs caravan analysis of other vehicles that are often found with those armored vehicles. And it runs 24/7 autonomously. Now, the city has to choose to say, hey, we think we have a jugging problem, but then we completely run the real-time investigation and all 24/7, 365 of tracking armored vehicles using computer vision, right? Because there's no other distinguisher. We look for the Brink logo and the Securitas logo, and then we run that caravan analysis, say, hey, we saw this Brink vehicle 6 times. We saw the same vehicle 3 times. Now, we're not going to go arrest that person, right? That's the middle to middle. We're going to identify the vehicle. We're going to flag that for an investigator to then go choose or choose not to work that case, build up an investigation, obtain a warrant, and then go deliver that warrant. So that one's for me, pretty easy. I think the other one I'd give you would be related to interdiction, which is probably something you're not super familiar with either. So you're just like moving drugs, guns, or people state by state. So there's very specific patterns. It's, Houston to Indianapolis. It's like a very common drug, narcotic, firearm, and human trafficking workflow. So you can build up these agents to say, hey, I've got a year's worth of arrest data. Hey, Flock, can you use that to help me understand what might be criminal activity? So a human is like loading that information. Humans deciding this is a traffic flow that I believe to be pretty common. Flock, go do the rest of the investigation. Tell me when you see something. So those are 2 kind of prime examples where our customers are using AI to investigate more aggressively.
Now, I can imagine the 2 primary concerns, and I want to ask you about both of them individually. One, first, let's start with privacy and kind of the surveillance state.
Yeah.
How do you address that? How do you prevent us from kind of devolving into that?
Yeah. So the macro answer is no one elected me to be the police chief of America. No one elected me president. We actually have a pretty, depending on how you want to debate it, a pretty successful system over the last few hundred years where we vote for people and we ask those people to make decisions on our behalf. So no one is being forced to have Flock on them. The way we look at it is if on the one far extreme, you can't see my hands all the way, on the one far extreme, you have total chaos, right? And I'm going to pick on some South American countries that have gone through that where there's no law and order. I don't think anyone in America wants that, or at least small subsets of America thinks that's a good solution. Then on the other extreme, you have something either like China or the UAE where, man, they are very tough on crime.
Yeah.
Very tough on crime. And I don't think we want to go there. That doesn't feel super American. So the range is pretty big in the middle. And we believe it's our job to build those levers so that every city and county can decide how tough on crime they want to be, how much surveillance they want, how much proactivity they want in law enforcement. And that's not really up to decide. And so as an example, in some cities we work with, there's a camera on every single street corner. And if you steal a car, there is a 100% chance you're going to get arrested for doing it. And I think that's great. That's up to them. And then there are other cities, which you can, Google online, who choose not to work with us. And they're going to have a lot of crime. And that crime's going to go up because criminals are going to know if you go to San Francisco, you're going to get caught. But you go to Seattle, well, maybe, probably get away with it. And then we think that's like not our job to tell people how to run their cities, people will vote with their wallets in their houses. And you think you saw that in San Francisco when crime was on the rise, that people left. They went to places that felt safer.
Yeah. Okay. So then, like, if we continue down that path for a moment, though, this is all assuming elected officials are doing things kind of by the books, transparently. But there is the potential for misuse, and I think there's been, at least one example where that has happened. Maybe you can speak to how do you address misuse? How do you catch it before it becomes rampant?
Yeah, no, you're right. With any powerful technology, there's a real reality of abuse, of misuse. And so one of the things that we do that's pretty unique, I think we're actually the only ones in our industry that does this, is every single action someone takes in our system is audited and stored in perpetuity. And so we have an example of abuse in our system in Kansas, where a police chief was using the system to track an ex-wife, and he had a restraining order. She had a restraining order on him. This is like the worst case, right? Maybe not the worst case. This is a bad case. That guy's in jail now because she felt like she was being tracked. So she called 911. It went to Wichita PD. They checked their audits and they were like, yeah, this guy's looking for your plate and that's against his restraining order. Now, what we've done since then, Matt, is we continue to build tools to automate that. Because in the case of Wichita, they have like thousands of users. And so it's like, it's an ask of them. Now, they don't want us to police them. That's not our job, right? We're not the city manager. We're not the mayor. But so like we have that auditing in place. And so when I look at that one, it's obviously heart-wrenching that like the woman went through that. But I also go, yeah, the system worked. Like that guy got held accountable. He's no longer in a position of power. He's in jail for breaking that restraining order. Like the whole thing played. I don't think the right answer is like, oh, let's go turn it off. It is more of how do we continue to put safeguards in road bumps to prevent abuse, to minimize abuse. But just like whether it's Instagram, like who would have thought Instagram is a place for sexual predators to hang out? I don't know, maybe that's what they thought of when they started the company, but no, I thought it was gonna be a cool way to share pictures. And then as you scale up, you see that the 0.1% times enough users is actually big enough you have to solve it.
So on that point, if you look at an industry like cybersecurity, they are constantly jockeying back and forth with cybercrime. You get more sophisticated cybersecurity and you get more sophisticated cyber threats. Are you seeing that in the real world? And how?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the arguments that I make to people who disagree with us is like, look, you can choose to give your local law enforcement zero technology, but the criminals are incredibly sophisticated. Now, not the guy driving a van that looks like a blue and black cow, that's not sophistication. But you look at some of these Eastern European and South American gangs, they are using technology way more advanced. And I'll give you an example. You've got these Eastern European gangs that they will buy drones commercially off the shelf. They will retrofit them to remove any ADS-B and any coverage so they are effectively invisible outside of the human eye. And they will fly them around affluent neighborhoods looking in to see if anyone's at home in the backyards and then break in. This is like not crazy, but guess what? It is illegal for local government to mitigate a drone. So it's actually illegal for local government to take a drone out of the air. That feels like a massive mistake we have as a policy perspective. The technology is there for them to actually mitigate, but they can't even do it. So we're seeing that kind of sophistication where these guys, like, it's a profitable capitalistic venture for them. They're not doing it because they hate you, Nick. They're doing it because they want your money. They want something. And so like that to me is the other risk is we have to play catch up and give our local government the upper hand.
So I have 2 young kids and obviously like there's been a lot of violence in schools. Is Flock deployed in schools? If so, talk to us about what that looks like and some of the concerns maybe the parents and teachers have.
Yeah, I mean, we have better penetration in higher universities, like upper education, higher universities, so colleges. We've got, I'm going to call it a broad adoption rate of universities. I'll take Georgia Tech, my alma mater, to give you a sense of like how they use the product. We have our license plate readers at all the egress points of the campus, so they know every single car that's coming in and out of campus. That's really important. Georgia Tech Police is able to maintain a list of both NCIC, so that's like active warrants, stolen cars, missing peoples. That's pretty straightforward. They're also able to maintain a list of at-risk individuals, right? And so universities are a source of death threats, of political activism. They're, appropriately high risk places. The police chief in this case can maintain a list of former employees that have been exited, that have threatened on the way out, people that have a hate against either professors, speakers. Pick your list. Like campuses are also places where controversial speakers come to talk. Georgia Tech PD now has the upper hand against them. Georgia PD also uses our drones, right? So within, I think, about 60 seconds, they can get anywhere on campus with a drone. So that camera can fly. They have Flock OS. They have a full suite of everything we do. So in the higher ed, we do really well. K-12 is a little bit different, Matt, to your point. Thankfully, campuses are normally a bit smaller. So most of our customers are using our LPR product. We have a handful of customers that are using our drones as well.
What is LPR?
License plate reader. So that's like
Okay.
being able to track cars incoming in and out. The one nice thing, or like I think this is nice, is we can also use our license plate readers for automatic pickup. So I don't know how old your kids are. My kids are in elementary school. So now when I pull up, it reads my license plate and it's like, oh, this is Garrett Langley. This is his son and daughter. They get pulled out automatically. I don't have to like check in with an app. And so we work with a handful of the kind of providers for that to deliver that service. So there's both safety and kind of automation.
Did you have another one, Matt?
No, go for it.
Okay, so let's fast forward, call it a decade. You have achieved your mission. There is zero crime in the United States of America. You're happy. And everyone else is too, actually.
I
So,
hope so.
what major hurdles have you gotten over? Like, what is preventing you from getting there today? What are the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we've talked about, that is the first one that we have to resolve is how do we make sure we achieve this mission in a way that maintains what makes America a great place to live? Those are our civil liberties. That's the Constitution. That's the right to prosper. We got to do both. I think that's going to be the hardest thing to do. I think it's going to be too easy, which we won't take that road, to just try to deploy mass surveillance. And I think we have to find a way to do both. And I think that's doable. I think it's about giving control at the most local level possible. That's number one. The second is, I'll give you a sense of scale. The last company to go public, which isn't a perfect rubric, but it's a pretty good rubric for scale, that serviced local government was in 2003. So 22 years. So my two largest competitors are both 40 plus years old. It's very hard to build a scalable business selling to local government. And the reason why is they buy really slow. They make decisions really slow. It's very rare that you get elected and reelected for strong leadership. You often get reelected for doing nothing. And that's what we incentivize as voters. And so when you see people like Mayor Lurie and the DA Jenkins in San Francisco who are actually like kind of have pretty stiff backbone, that's really rare. And so I have to seize on that opportunity and try to convince the mayor to do more now while he has that momentum. And if I can do that, that's probably the second biggest hurdle. Is it's really tough dealing with government. I don't wish it upon anyone. And you layer in like hardware and all that, and it's like that's the easy stuff is probably what other people perceive as hard. Like it's actually easy to build hardware. It's easy to do manufacturing in America. It's easy to be, hardware, software, and AI. It's the kind of intangibles in this business that are much harder to accomplish.
As you continue to grow the business, there's like very obvious applications to warfare. Is that a direction that you plan on going? And if so, why?
Probably not. I don't think so. Not because I don't have an issue with it. I think what Anduril is doing and Northrop Grumman, who's just north of me up in Marietta, those are incredible businesses that are critical. I just think we have a very clear mission. And I think that to Nick's point, I think we'll get there, but I think we'll find a lot of new problems along the way that support a thriving community. And so the example I'd give you, and this threw our company a little bit for a loop until they fully got it. Like we launched a new product beginning this year called the Thriving Cities Fund, where we invest as a private equity entity into local businesses to help them scale. And so every single customer we have has a check waiting for them that says, hey, if you're, Greenville, Mississippi, I got $100,000 waiting to deploy into your city to help entrepreneurs be successful. I'm not doing that because I'm for warm and fuzzies. I think that Greenville, because they've adopted Flock, is going to be safer in a year. And actually, there's more likely that the business can be successful. And if I want to decrease crime permanently, so not just arrest people, but actually permanently remove crime, I have to create jobs. That's the only way out of crime is through jobs. And so I look at that kind of thing and I get more excited about supporting local businesses. When I think about the things we can do for having safer and cleaner roads, there's like so many parts of being in a thriving community that we're not working on that I don't think we can until we solve the crime problem. So I'm more focused on that than necessarily going into like the DoD.
Garrett, before we let you go,
Yeah.
this is actually super fascinating. Where you have seen Flock installed in a local community, what metrics are you looking at to see that beyond kind of the obvious ones, crime reduction? But what are those other metrics? And like I'm thinking maybe from like a real estate investor's perspective, how do I watch where Flock is being installed? Like what are you looking at?
Yeah, so I'll give you some recent examples. So first metric we look at is clearance rates. So if you look at someone like Oakland, pre-Flock and post-Flock, their clearance rates on violent crime are up 13 percentage points.
And
so literally there is
what clearance rate is.
Yes, it's the likelihood of getting arrested. So average clearance rate for homicide in America is just around 45%. So you have a 55% chance of getting away with killing someone. Now, after Flock, it's 13 percentage points higher to commit any violent crimes in Oakland. That's only a year in. And we're barely partially deployed. Like they have a fraction of what we do. So that's number one is like clearance rate. The reason why we care about clearance rate is that it's typically a leading indicator to reductions in crime. So if you go to a place like Mount Juliet, Tennessee, is a suburb of Nashville, Mount Juliet has Flock and Nashville doesn't. Yes, Nashville's crime is down. Mount Juliet's crime is down 3 times the rate of Nashville. Only way that I can explain that, and you ask the chief or the mayor, they say the same thing, is because of Flock. So that's the second thing we look for is like, can this crime go down? And then to your question, Matt, the third thing we look for is the economy up? Are taxes up? Is tax revenue up? Right? Like, are we actually building a better community? Because if all we wind up doing is arresting a bunch of people, that's actually not success in our eyes. Like success is that the benefits of being safe are seen in economic development. So when I sit down with the mayor and talk about a 5 or 10 year vision as a community, it's can we double your population? It's can we double your tax revenue while decreasing your taxes along the way? Like that's the dream goal. So those are the 3 things we look for. Is like, can we solve more crime? Can we lower crime? And then can we increase economic activity because of those 2 facts?
So Garrett, before we let you go, one final question. Matt and I were talking about Figure earlier in the show. They just released their 3rd generation.
Figure 3, right?
Humanoid. Yep,
humanoid?
That's right.
Yeah.
What's the plan with humanoid robots? Is it the next product or not?
Yeah, I mean, depending on who you ask, like our drones are robots. You know, they fly, they have mechanical parts, they've got cameras, they do interesting things. Now, ours are not weaponized. They fly 400 feet up in the air. So for them to do things physically in the real world is a little bit challenging. They're built to fly high. I do think give you a sense of scale. A great partner of ours or a friend of ours, someone like Allied Universal, you know, they do something like $30 billion in revenue for unarmed guards. I have a hard time imagining in 10 years from now, some combination of drones, robotic guards, dogs, you know, robotic dogs, pick your flavor. Like, I'm not sure this is the best human activity for society. It seems like this could be augmented with robotic technology. So I'm pretty bullish on what that looks like. I don't know if we're going to be the ones building robots. It seems like there's a couple of exciting companies, like to your point, like Figure, that are doing some good work. I could see us using them as a part of our solution, though.
Yeah. Great. Well, want to thank you so much for coming on the show today, giving us some of your time. Where can people find you? Where should they look you up?
Yeah, we are always hiring, always selling. Flocksafety.com. Check us out, whether it's for a job or it's for an RFP. We'd love to help you out.
Awesome.
Yeah, Garrett, thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Oh, man. Could have asked him like another 100 questions, I think.
Yeah, that could have gone on for a while longer. Interesting stuff. Yeah. I like how he's thinking about measuring success, you know, like that was a more nuanced answer than I was expecting.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a real estate investment formula there. Follow Flock Safety's implementation.
Yeah. It used to be wherever CVS is going in or something like that. Like they always did the most market research. So you just followed CVS. Now it's Flock.
Costco as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a supermarket here in the Pacific Northwest called New Seasons, and it has the same effect. Whenever that goes in, appreciation.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
I think we're doing a slop or not.
Got to do slop or not. Let's keep this this round short since we do. I think our guest
Yeah, we
is
went a
here.
few minutes over, and our next guest is coming on. Yeah, Alex, you joining up? Give him a second.
Yes,
he
I
is.
am. For some
There
reason,
he
my camera
is.
was not coming on.
Got the Ford
Hello.
Future hat. Beautiful.
I sure do. All right, everybody, welcome to Slop or Not, the show where we pit AI models against each other to find out which models make slop and which models come out on top. Today, we're testing Nano Banana, Seedream 4, GPT Image 1, and Qwen Image Edit Plus. I'm going to show 4 images, and we're going to pick our favorite one and see which model made it.
Was
hold
that
on.
rehearsed? That was very
No.
good.
I
That
just
was
wrote it
really
down, like-
impressive, Alex.
I wrote it down like 3 minutes ago, right before we came on.
Yeah, that was really good, dude.
Thank you. All right. Let's get right into it. We got a little bit of a fall theme going on this episode. His first image: transform Matt into a Thanksgiving chef carving a turkey expertly, while Alex gets her head stuck in a pumpkin trying to make pie.
Yeah, can we just pause for a second and like just appreciate that we went from talking about community safety and
Yeah.
AI to this? I don't even know what this is, but yeah,
Hey,
that's,
it's a dynamic show, you know.
that's right. Okay,
Okay.
so Alex, we're supposed to tell you which one is our favorite and why.
Yeah. Well, let's just go through them one by one.
All right,
Also,
let's
got to
look at
talk to
the first
Jonah
one.
about this right here because, yeah. Anyway.
That one looks pretty darn good. I'd say like that looks like me. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
good. Well, not that, Alex, not that. The guy, the chef.
The
Okay.
flower
Alright.
on the hands, the attention to detail,
Yeah.
all good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. All right, let's check out the second one.
Okay, that looks nothing like either of us. Certainly that's not what my hair looks like. Maybe if I grew it out, but other than the likeness not being like us, I think it's actually a great image. The image generators are just so good nowadays.
good.
The likeness is kind of the last frontier. You look like the guy in the pumpkin kind of looks. Oh my god, what's that guy's name from SNL a long time ago? Oh shoot, it was Chris Farley's kind of sidekick.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Forget
I
that.
don't know.
All right, well, drop it in chat if you know who I'm talking about.
Let's move on to the next image. It likes to make me a pumpkin.
Yes, yeah.
I don't mind that.
Once again, image great, likeness not so great.
Yeah.
And
Yep,
anybody
I
who's
agree.
different, I hate you.
It's a little more cartoonish too. It doesn't feel quite as real for some
Yeah.
reasons. Same with
this one.
Yeah,
This
same
one's
with this
very cartoonish. But
David
now I'm-
Spade, thank you, David Spade.
Nice,
Can
thank
you go
you.
back up there? That looks like David Spade for sure.
Pretty good.
Thanks, Org Networks, for that one.
No, I'm not impressed.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
not at
I
all.
agree
Like
with that.
likeness, like everything looks very polished and cartoonish almost. Yeah, so I think number one's gonna have to be it for likeness and also for just overall quality. I think number
think
two is
so.
actually
This
really
looks-
good too.
This looks like me. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know I don't like agreeing with you, but I'm gonna
Oh,
go
shoot.
one, too. Oh,
Go ahead, show it. Let's see what we got.
I was Nano Banana.
Nano
Nano
banana.
banana, nice. All right, let's
All
do
right.
let's do one more quick one.
Let's do one more. I'm actually gonna skip to a different one because I want to show this image. We're gonna skip through this one. Let's go on to this one. This is Matt as a brave knight on horseback, while Alex rides a tiny pony, but looks equally determined with oversized armor. And I
Go
just
to that
need to
first
point out,
image. Let's just analyze what's happening here.
Wait, that is literally your profile picture.
Are you sure you didn't just Photoshop this?
it looks just
It looks
Photoshop.
horrible.
I don't know. I think this one's pretty impressive.
Did you use your likeness for the other night?
As far as I know, your and my likeness were used together in all of these.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, but that is the image that was
this
taken.
is
of
all
you.
over the place.
All right,
This
let's go to
is-
the
this is
next one.
horrible. Let's see what else we got.
This is a little better. This one looks more like a painting.
This
Yeah,
one looks
yeah.
really good, actually. This
Not
is quite
bad.
impressive. Okay. All right. What else we got?
These ones look nothing like us.
No. Also, I'm a little child all of a sudden.
I think I'm the little child. I think
That's
this is
supposed
you.
to be Alex. Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see. I
yeah.
see. Yeah, that's
Maybe.
definitely what I look like up there. Okay.
Oh
Yeah.
hell yeah!
Oh,
Look at this.
look at
I'm
that
getting some
jump.
sick
The
air
big guy
here.
looks
Yeah.
like you, like your face, not your hair, but your face.
Yeah.
I don't know. The guy on the pony looks like nobody. So
Yeah, not great. I gotta go too. I like the style.
I don't. I think number one's the one for me, just because how silly it
It's
looks.
so good. This is a new profile picture, right?
There you go. Yeah. All right. Which one's which? Let's see.
One's Nano Banana. I think
Nano Banana. That surprises me.
Man, that
These
is
make
like a
sense.
hard fail from Nano Banana.
Yeah.
Steve
All right, put us
Dream,
out of our
Image Editor
misery.
Plus, GPT-1. Yeah, GPT-Image1. That's the one, huh?
Yeah.
all right,
All right.
guys.
All right,
Drop
Alex.
a like.
Thank you.
Drop a like on the stream if you want Nick to be in the next Slop or Not as our
Or don't.
example.
No pressure.
Lots of pressure, guys. All right. Thanks for having
All
me
right.
on.
Yeah, Alex.
All right.
Be
Nick, you want to bring
guys.
on our next guest?
Yeah, let's do it. So, very pleased to announce that we are going to be bringing on Adrian Ludwig, Chief Architect and CISO from Tools for Humanity. Now, come on and we'll dive right into it. Hey, Adrian, how are you?
I'm doing well. I guess I came on. We're good to go.
You're on.
Yeah. Yeah, sound
Um,
good too.
thank you
Nice
for bearing with
good to
us.
see ya.
No, I was very entertained. I'm somewhere around here. I have to find my horse so I can hop on there and make it
Yeah,
happen. Or my pumpkin. Or
We
Big
can
Mac.
have Alex put you in one of these images if you want. It's no big deal.
It might be a big deal, actually.
Yeah, you never know. That's a lot of power to give someone. All right, so just starting off, can you, for the audience at least, tell us what Tools for Humanity is? What kind of work are you all doing, and what is your role within it?
Sure, all of the above. So the basic starting point is exactly what you were just going through, which is realizing that more and more of the content that's online is coming from AI. More and more of the interactions that we have are potentially enabled by AI. I believe just from your sense of humor that you're a real human, but I have no foundation for actually knowing that that's true. And so Tools for Humanity is a company that started about 6-7 years ago. The founders, Alex Blania, Sam Altman, realized that it was getting more and more difficult to differentiate people from bots. And the reason it was difficult is there was no ground truth. And so that's what we've been working on at Tools for Humanity, is how to have a root of trust for whether someone is a real person or not, whether they're acting on behalf of a real person. And we call that proof of humanity. And the thing that people are probably familiar with, if they've ever heard of us or interacted with us before, is this thing called the orb, which is a bowling ball sized, fairly brilliant. At one point it was chrome, now it's a bright white ball that is a camera that takes a picture and gives you proof of humanity that you can then use online. So that is what we're up to. I work as the chief architect here. My background is all security, so I worked on Android and a bunch of other products that have become reasonably popular, and making sure that they have a good security model that works at scale. Because our goal is to get to the point where we have every human able to have proof of humanity and when they're interacting online, and do that in a private and secure way.
So before we get into all the details of this,
Yeah.
I want to back up and just talk about online identity and verification as a whole, because it is a mess. I mean, we have face checks, two-factor codes, ID documentation scans, selfies, sign in with social. Matt and I, we work in technology. We're in the stuff every day, and I am constantly butting my head up against verification tests.
Yep.
So how did we get here, and how do we get past it?
How did we get here? I would say we got here because every system that was ever built was built for something else. I feel fortunate. I did a selfie check earlier today for a rental car where they asked for my driver's license. And I was like, well, at least it is a driver's license, and that's what I'm going to use it for. It's not for me to be able to access content. It's not for me to be able to participate in a dating network. It's not for me. There's all of these other uses that we've taken licenses or documents that were intended for one purpose, and we're trying to wedge them in to solve some other problem. And so that's where we basically started. The phrase that gets thrown around a lot these days is from first principles, and we asked, what do you need for a good ID online? What do you need for identity? How do you prove that you are a valid user and an appropriate user in various contexts online, but not sort of try to wedge some existing solution in place? And that's where we started.
And so, okay, I interviewed Saturnin, one of your colleagues, and curious, like, how is all of this related to WorldCoin? And I believe it's now called just World. How are all these different products interconnected?
Yeah, and there's a lot that's going on because building it, it's complicated to make something like this work at scale. So Tools for Humanity is the company. We're working on something called the World Project. There are a variety of pieces to the World Project. The one that I described, the proof of humanity, is literally a physical object that takes a picture, analyzes it, and uses that to confirm that you are a real human. Once you have confirmed that you are a real human, then you're going to want to use that in some way. And so the second part of the project is what's called the World ID. The World ID is based on zero-knowledge proofs. It is, we think, the most private way for you to be able to interact with services. You hold your own World ID, and then you are able to verify that you're a real human by going to an orb, that proof of humanity. You then interact with whatever service you want to interact with. So it could be, YouTube, it could be Meta, it could be whatever, a dating application, an online gaming application. Maybe it's to buy tickets to go to a concert. All of those are things that you have a one-on-one relationship with that provider. And they don't need to know about the other ones, and they don't need to have that information flow into an advertising network. And so there's no reason for that data to be centralized. It's just a one-on-one relationship that you have with that service provider. And so World ID gives you the ability to have that interaction and understand what, if any, information has been given to that party, because World ID is fully anonymous, proves that you're human and nothing else. And so that's what World ID gives you. Now, building that at scale has two parts that require what I think of as sustainability. One is you need to manufacture these cameras. You need to get them distributed out into the world. We have over 1,700 of them out in the world right now. We have had 17 million users go to an orb somewhere in their hometown, become verified. Over 37 million people who are using the World app, which is what holds your World ID and allows you to interact with services. So building that network is a fairly costly thing. And then having it continue to operate into the future is also something that requires money. And so we built infrastructure to make that be sustainable. And the way that we think that that will work is when you use your World ID to go to a service, that service will pay to get this increased confidence, the increased security. By the way, I really enjoyed the conversation with Flock earlier. Super fascinating. Because ultimately, security is like the foundation of lots of interactions, not just in the physical world, but also in the digital world as well. And so we see World ID as enabling value in these online services that are currently under threat. Right? Their business models that were built without AI, they're trying to figure out, how do we continue to provide a good service? How do we continue to have people be confident that they're interacting with real people? How do you have a social network actually be social? And so we think that in the future, people will be very comfortable, if they're operating one of those services, paying to have that World ID. And so WorldCoin is the mechanism for enabling that kind of transfer of value within the ecosystem, so it can be sustainable. You have a fancy video here.
Yeah, this is that you can take that down. Thanks, Alex. I wanted to show a picture of the actual orb device. You could pull that up whenever you get a second. So like when you look at
them too, we have them, like I said, they're in lots of places. We have one in San Francisco down near Union Square. That's where I'm based. Austin.
Actually, walk us through the process. So I see an orb kiosk set up. What do I actually do? What does that process look like? What am I giving up?
So the way that this works, you install an application. Right now, the World app is the most popular one. There could be other apps in the future that will hold your World ID or allow you to act as what's called an authenticator. You want to have a proof of human, so you go to an orb. The orb will interact with your phone. It'll say, what's your World ID? I want to verify that World ID. You have some pictures taken by the orb. So it is a camera. That's what that sort of round hole that you've got there. It takes a picture of my face. It also takes a picture of my eye, and then analyzes that picture. It's doing two things. One is that it is determining that you're a real person. So is your face 3 dimensions? Does it have warmth? Does it have movement? There are all of these characteristics that were analyzed. Yeah, infrared.
Wow.
So is it a thing that looks and acts like a real human at the scale of a handful of pictures being taken very, very quickly? Analyzes that on the orb itself. So it's not connecting to a backend system to do analysis. It's not uploading anything. It's analyzing it on the orb itself. So it's got more money spent on NVIDIA chips than we probably want inside of a single camera, but a lot of analysis that's going on inside of that camera.
How much money?
The cost to manufacture one of them at this point is several $1,000s.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We think over time that will become less expensive. The version that we're working on right now is about half of the cost of the original. At some point, we think we can get down to the cost that is sufficiently low that it could be a component inside of a phone or inside of a computer. That's our goal, is that eventually this is something that can be available anywhere. In much the same way that, 50 years ago, buying a nice camera was, $1,000 or a couple $1,000. Now, their BOM cost for a camera incorporated into a cell phone is a couple bucks. So that's what we're looking at.
Got it.
And so those pictures are taken, analyzed, and then given to the user. And that user now has what's called personal custody package, or a credential that they hold on their phone that can be used to produce this proof of humanness in interactions with other sites.
The entire proof happens on the orb device. Is there anything sent off into your service, your cloud, your servers?
Yeah, let's talk through that. So there's two parts. The proof of humanness, the confirm that you're an actual human, all happens on the orb. One of the things that comes out of that is what we call anonymous multi-party compute shares. So there's this technology that was invented a while back from security by cryptographers to break down a piece of data into pieces. And then those pieces can go to different parties, in much the same way that you can sort of split up a key and require that multiple different parties have access to pieces of that key in a crypto standpoint. And those pieces are then provided to different parties in an anonymous fashion. So none of those parties have access to any of the underlying biometric or any of the data that was actually created by the orb. All of that data goes to the user, but there's this unique token that's split up that allows us to confirm whether the person is unique. So it's, have you registered before? So there's, are you human? The orb does all of that. And then have you registered before does require AMPC shares to be split up. So that's all that happens. And then that unique human identity, that unique human identity is a decent word here, it ends up being registered online. So you have a key that you use for your World ID, you're able to then interact with other parties.
And so, okay, let's switch gears for a second. So you see Sora 2 come out with cameos, and are you just thinking, well, this is like obviously why I started this thing years ago? Is it like that is the primary use case, or is it more, let's say, agents browsing the web, or is it both?
I mean, I think it's all of the above, and this is where I do think it's, I'm a security professional by trade. So for me, the phrase root of trust is really meaningful, right? You need to have a root of trust for identity. You need to have a root of trust for computation. And you need to know who an agent is acting on behalf of. You need to know that an image came from someone. And that's sort of how we think about it. So yeah, differentiating is something created by a particular person is a really important part of understanding whether or not it's something that I want to interact with. The examples that I think are most compelling are ones where we have a one-on-one interaction, right? I'm in a video game online. I want to know that I'm playing against real people. I don't need to know who they are. They can have a completely fictitious identity, but I want to know that it is who they claim to be, that they have a persistent identity over time, that it's not a billionaire that paid a professional to play for a while and then they switched just so that they could claim that it's their account.
I have no idea who you're referencing.
I'm not referencing anybody. It's a hypothetical risk that could come to pass.
Sure. Got it.
Have you had any examples of false proofs of humanity with the orb device? Because you said, like, as you were describing, you're like, as long as this thing has heat and has kind of movement, and has anybody tried to, I guess, outside of your red teaming, fake humanity, fake humanness?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when we have numbers like we have with 17 million that have been verified, we've definitely seen lots of examples of people trying to fake it. We've seen people trying to fake it in the obvious ways. Like, does my dog get verified? The answer there is no. There's the more sophisticated ones where you try to have your head upside down, you try to do things like that. We've seen that both in the real world and in our testing. Well, it switches your eyes. And so it's still a human face, but it's got a different orientation. So does the calculation...
Like it's a second person, like it's a
new
identity.
Or there's what we call a mirror attack. I can do a reflection of one eye, and so it looks like it's a different person, even though it's the same. There's a whole bunch of these types of things that we've seen people try. Invariably, those types of things, we do a pretty good job of detecting that on the orb and blocking it. And then the more sort of basic is once someone has an ID, they try to steal it from somebody else. And so we've done a lot of work to make sure that the person that's using an ID in the future is the same one that originally went through verification.
Interesting. How are you handling privacy concerns? How are you thinking about, I mean, you mentioned theft, but also if your identity is being stored and like, how do you protect privacy overall?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is to make sure that we just don't have any data. And saying this for a lot of people, it's really hard for them to hear it because they're so used to systems that have tons of data. They're so used to systems where you're using your federated identity across a bunch of different sites, and whoever issued you that initial identity, whether it's your phone manufacturer or your operating system manufacturer or your favorite social network, they have visibility into every site that you go to. And they say we're private and we care about it, but they actually still do have the data. We've designed the system in such a way that we just don't have the data. There's literally nothing from the orb that ends up in a service that is run by World. The images go to the user. Those AMPC shares, which are encrypted so that no one can read them, go to third parties. They've been encrypted in such a way that those third parties can't actually see the underlying data. So there's literally no one in the world who can see the user data in this situation other than the user. And then, of course, we do a ton of work to make sure that the user is protected as well. So we provide them with the ability to do a backup and a restore in case they lose it. We make sure that the data that's on their device has been encrypted, et cetera. From first principles, we don't want to have it, and we don't want to know how it's being used, and we want to facilitate users being able to do whatever they want to do online in a way that's as private as possible.
So as you're working towards this mission, this objective, like what's next on the roadmap for you? What are the things that you personally are focused on?
The biggest thing is scale. This kind of thing works most effectively if everybody has access to it. And so there's a couple of different ways that I think about scale. One is how many orbs are out there in the world. So we're trying to increase the number of orbs. So driving down costs, making sure that they're available in as many countries as possible, making sure that they're available in many cities as possible. I mentioned we have a couple thousand right now that are out in the world. We think, over the coming year, we're going to be able to ramp production and have tens of thousands of them so that they're as accessible, say, as a high-end photocopier or going into a Kinko's to get a passport photo taken. That's our goal, right? To get it as simple and easy to access as possible. The second aspect of scale is how many ways that it can be used. There are far too many services right now that require users to provide personal information about themselves as part of the effort of that service to protect the users against bots, right? You need to upload your driver's license into a social network because they're worried about fraud. They think they have a bots problem. And so our goal is to be able to have a conversation with every one of those social networks, gaming networks, dating networks. When you go to buy a ticket to go to a concert, you shouldn't have to upload information about yourself to be able to do that. You should be able to do that in an anonymous way, but not have the threat of that ticket be scalped, not have an inability. The example that we saw recently that it's hilarious because it's so sad was in the city and county of Los Angeles. Basically, every reservation to go to a city-run golf course was being purchased by bots and then being resold. It's like, I shouldn't have to give up personal information to be able to go golf. But that's what you have to do in order to prevent bots from buying all of those up and then scalpers from reselling them. And so it's sort of pervasive in a way that we've lost track of. But point being, finding how to fit into all of those use cases is a second part of scale. So one is just how do you get access? And then the other is how do you make sure that those use cases fit really well?
Is this something where you plan on having it be our form of identity for non-digital realms? So at the airport, at TSA, if you're buying alcohol, whatever it is, instead of a driver's license, instead of a federal ID or a passport, is that something that you plan to expand into?
So the way that I think about it, what we're trying to do is provide a private protocol, private to the user. It's actually a public, open source, fully disclosed protocol, so anybody can use it, much the same way IP can be used by anybody. And then how it gets used is going to be based on the positive attributes that it has. So I would love it if I could go to a liquor store and show that I'm over age 18 without revealing my home address. I don't think they ever really look at that, but it's a little weird that I have to show that I'm a resident of a particular country when I go to buy something, when I'm in Europe, right? I have to give them my passport. Like, all I want to do is walk into a bar. So it's a little strange the way that those systems have been built, and we've sort of accepted them. I do think that if we're able to build a private protocol that answers the question that's being asked without giving away a bunch of additional information, it's very relevant in the physical world. I just think that the problems that we encounter are in the digital world, but they also exist in the physical world. So I would like to think that our protocol could be used in both places.
Okay. And then when I'm looking at the world side of your products, talk to us about how the actual blockchain technology has helped facilitate the build out of World.
Yeah, there's a couple parts to it. Again, people are probably not super familiar. So the first use case that was implemented to take advantage of World was something called World Chain, which is a L2, which is a type of protocol on Ethereum, and there is a token called the World Coin. And users who join the World Network are given some of those tokens. So that was something that was really attractive to early adopters, is that they were gaining a piece of the network. They sort of are an owner of the network, which also, by the way, is very different from how most other identity products are built, right? They are privately owned, or they're held by stakeholders that are not the people who are part of the network. And so we thought that was an interesting difference in model, is that everybody who became a member of the network gets a piece of the network. So that was the first way that WorldCoin was introduced and sort of became part of the protocol. The second, yeah, you're right. I haven't been to too many bars in Europe, now that I think about it. I guess because I've always looked like I'm over age 18, so it hasn't been a problem.
You're reading the comments. That's from K. Eric Winkler. Yeah.
The second aspect is, of course, that those tokens have become valuable and can be used for other purposes. So we have a lot of what are called mini apps that are being built on the World Chain. Some of them are games, some of them are trading applications. And so the World Chain provides a vehicle for users, many of whom are real humans and verified humans, to be able to have interactions that are financial in nature as well.
So actually, thanks for bringing up mini apps. I think you refer to this as the human app store. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think people, especially if they're coming from Asia, have become very familiar with the idea of a mini app. So in the United States and Western countries especially, we tend to think of the App Store as the primary place that you would go, right? You go to the Apple App Store, or you'd go to Google Play to get an app. But there are other parts of the world where large app ecosystems have been built inside the context of, say, for example, WeChat. And so one thing that World App provides is a way for developers to build mini apps. And those can be, those are available to any user of the World App. They can install them and then interact with them. We have 17 million, I've mentioned a few times, verified users. So these are people who have gone to an orb that you know that they are a real person. And so the installation of one of those mini apps is pretty interesting, especially for things like micro lending we're seeing, where knowing that someone is a real person is probably actually turns out to be enough of a basis to be able to issue them credit. And so we're seeing lots of different kinds of these mini applications that are being built, but ones that are most interesting are in the credit space, the lending space, the giving space, where a very small amount of proof of humanness is really all that you need to be confident in offering them a small loan. And then over time, they're able to build up a credit history, which is very different from the way that traditional finance has worked.
Got it.
And okay, so I think like one thing people know about is Sam Altman is one of the founders. How did he get involved? How did you meet him? Like, tell us a little bit about that story.
So he got involved very early. He and Alex, are amongst the folks that sat down and had some of the very early conversations 6 or 7 years ago, where there was speculation that eventually we would begin to see AI that was sufficiently good that you couldn't tell the difference between AI and a person in a pure digital context.
And this was well before ChatGPT.
Yeah, this was definitely well before that. And Alex likes to say at the time people thought this was crazy. I don't know if they thought it was crazy, but they definitely weren't. It wasn't obvious. I think at this point it is obvious that you can't tell the difference. And maybe it's 95% of the time, maybe it's 99% of the time that you can't tell the difference, but it's most of the time at this point you can't tell the difference. My introduction to Sam was a couple of years later. I joined about 2 years ago. And for me, what was exciting was this was a problem that I had seen for decades. When I was working on Android, one of the biggest problems that we had was application developers building malware. And it turns out that the reason that is a persistent problem is it's too easy in general for someone to create a piece of malware, tear down their identity, create a new account, do it over and over and over again. And so we very quickly realized that being able to have even the most simple, is this the same person, or is this a person element of most fraud and security models online would be sufficient to solve the vast majority of problems that we have online from a fraud and abuse standpoint. But that didn't exist. That simple private proof of human was not a concept that existed. And so when I heard that this was something that the team had been working on, I was drawn to it. So I joined about 2 years ago to help build out the security capability and then also think about how we can decentralize, because the only way that this is going to work, the only way that this is going to be trustworthy is if there's not a single company or single organization that owns it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to do.
So if people want to find out how to join World, how to check out the orb, if they just want to see it first before actually getting their identity scanned, how do they do that?
There's a couple different ways you could do. World.org certainly has lots of information. If you go into your app store and you download World App, there's all kinds of information inside the World App. You can get access to some of the mini apps and begin interacting with them and see what they're like. And you can also use some of those apps to learn more about the verification process. And then in about 75 of the largest cities around the world, we have physical locations. I mentioned here in the United States, San Francisco, Austin, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Georgia are some of the ones that I've been to. And we're expanding in a constant basis. So you can go in and talk to people there and they're happy to give you more information about it.
All right. Check out world.org. World. Actually, you should get that. World.org.
Or go talk to our marketing people. We're on it.
Exactly. Adrian, thank you so much for joining the show. I appreciate your time. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian.
It's your pleasure.
Appreciate it.
All right. So that's our show for this week. I want to say Thank you to Wade Foster, co-founder, CEO of Zapier. Check out Zapier.com. Garrett Langley, founder and CEO of Flock Safety. Go check out Flock Safety. And as we just talked about, Adrian Ludwig, Chief Architect and CISO for toolsofhumanityworld.org. Nick, thank you again for co-hosting.
Of course, of course. So, Matt, we actually have some news to share. Next week, on the 15th, which is a Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific, we are going to be at Dreamforce, live at Dreamforce, and we have an incredible lineup. We have folks from F1, Live Golf. We have Mark Benioff, of course, from Salesforce, and his chief scientist also. We have the Figma CTO, and a few
Bunch of
others.
good
It's going to be
ones.
an awesome show. If you're there, come see us. If you're not,
say hi.
tune in. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited about that. That's going to be an in-person show. Join us on the live stream. If you're at Dreamforce, as Nick said, please join us there. Thanks everybody for today watching. Thanks to Alex and Jonah for helping out in the background. Don't forget, follow us on Twitter. You can follow us at @forward_future_. You can follow me at Matthew Berman. Check out our newsletter, forwardfuture.ai, and we'll see you next week at Dreamforce.